This episode was sponsored by Property, the leading real estate agent for all real estate transactions with a comprehensive ecosystem. They combine highly trained experts with the latest technologies on an intelligent platform to provide clients, brokers, and service partners with risk-free, flexible, and simplified services. Learn more at property.com. That's property with an I.com.
The idea, when it was first started and still today, was always to sort of like encourage people who are developing this great intellectual property as Swiss academic institutions to basically encourage and support them to found companies of their own and to basically turn these great inventions that they are making into commercial and viable businesses.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Merle.
So today I'm sitting here with Wanja, who is the CEO of Kickfund. And we will talk about the ecosystem and how Kickfund supports Swiss startups. But of course, first we want to get to know Wanja a little bit better. You've been involved in the Swiss VC world for over a decade now. And you started out actually in 2014 at Swisscom. And during that time, the unit really transformed from a conventional corporate venture capital to what it is today. Can you tell us your path and maybe also how it shaped your whole journey until today?
Yes, of course. So, as you've said, I first joined Swisscom Ventures in 2014, right after having graduated from business school, actually. So it was my first job. I always had a very strong and keen interest in, all different sorts of technology topics. Besides, having obtained that degree from the University of St. Gallen. And then just one thing led to another. A friend of mine, actually, who was at the time doing the trainee program at Swisscom, told me about this possibility of spending some time with the Swisscom Ventures team when doing the trainee program, which led to me reaching out to Dominique Maigret, who was in charge of that team at the time. And then just, joining Swisscom for the trainee program, and spending most of the time during the following 12 months with the team. I was in Silicon Valley too.
Cool.
Not for Swisscom Ventures, but for an adjacent program, people who were working on fintech topics mostly. And my time there was spent mostly researching blockchain-related topics. I didn't buy any Bitcoins at the time, unfortunately, because I was broke pretty much right after university during my initial years, just basically picking up the pace in my professional life. And then right after graduating from this program at Swisscom, I rejoined the team again. At the time, Swisscom Ventures, the team itself was only 3 partners that were complemented by a part-time CFO.
Yeah.
And I was basically the first young person joining the team. And then, fast forward, during the following 8 years, I was very closely involved in a number of investments. I think about 10 or 11 or so. I was on the board of several as well. I had, the great pleasure of being on the board of Bring as well, which is a grocery shopping list app company, which also was the first investment I had the possibility of, basically completing on behalf of the Swisscom Ventures team, which led to the company eventually being acquired by the time that I left, which was at the end of 2021. So during that time, I learned, basically the craft of investing, from sourcing investment opportunities, to making investments, to managing portfolio companies, to, in some instances, as I've said, even selling those portfolio companies too. A bit less on the investor-facing side, which is something that I only picked up later. And then strengthened a lot during my time with Kickfund, actually. So, some of the things that I learned during my time there and that actually very strongly formed my own personal conviction in what makes sense in terms of, an investment approach as such, is that it is very important not to over restrictively adhere to a certain investment strategy, but to rather be able to take advantage of opportunities when they come up as well. Because a lot of times, great opportunities, they come up without you knowing where they will be coming from, And if you're an investor that's very rigorously following a certain set of investment hypotheses, I have the impression that you might be blind to great opportunities that might eventually occur outside your scope. And so that's one of the things that we were very good at Swisscom Ventures. We always had our topics that we had strong know-how and conviction in. But then if a great opportunity came around the corner, which most of the time come via your own personal network, then we also had this flexibility of taking advantage of those as well. And so that was very helpful and was a great pleasure to see during my time at Swisscom Ventures. And something else that I always had a very strong conviction in as well is that there are merits in co-investing alongside other investors and not only making lead investments. I mean, this is relevant for my role at Kickfund for obvious reasons as well. But I saw that during my time at Swisscom Ventures because especially the investment opportunities that we were pursuing at the time, when we invested outside Switzerland, which I was primarily responsible for during my, I think, final 2 years or so, we always only co-invested with other investors. And I really felt like it's the approach that you need to implement for doing these investments is different, of course, because you're not the one basically imposing the timeline on a company when it comes to, them eventually being able to close a round of financing. But you really need to be there and nurture a relationship with the founders as well as with other investors, especially the ones who might eventually have an interest in leading a round of financing. And then timing is of the essence as well, of course. But in the end, I am quite positive about, during my time there, us having been able to do pretty interesting and compelling investments as well, following that particular approach. Then following my time at Swisscom Ventures, I basically, even though Swisscom Ventures, as you have said yourself, basically made that transition from being a more traditionally run corporate venture capital team that invests funds on behalf of a corporate sponsor to one that's primarily investing funds on behalf of institutional investors. I made the full transition from, having such a corporate partner in the background to only investing funds on behalf of qualified institutional investors mostly. While I was with MTIP, a Basel-based firm, and then eventually this opportunity came up of taking over as CEO of Kickfund.
Yeah, and that's where we want to jump in. So we are in the year 2023. Basically, you became CEO of Kickfund. But maybe for all the listeners that don't know Kickfund, we need to explain first, of course, what it is.
Yes.
Because Kickfund is actually the fund that invests in startups after they've completed the Venture Kick program. So maybe you can tell us quickly, what is this program? How do startups get in? What are they doing? And what do they get out of it?
Yes. So Venture Kick is Switzerland's foremost accelerator that was first started in 2007, that has led to the creation of around about 1,000 companies. The idea when it was first started and still today was always to sort of like encourage people who are developing this great intellectual property as with academic institutions to basically encourage and support them to found companies of their own and to basically turn these great inventions that they are making into commercial and viable businesses. So that's the whole idea behind the Venture Kick program. It was first initiated by the two foundations, the Gebel Foundation as well as the Ernst Göhner Foundation, who are the main supporters of the program still today. It is a privately run program, which a lot of people don't know, especially people from abroad that are used to having these programs that are publicly funded. In Venture Kick's case, it's entirely privately funded, which is very nice to see, I think, as well. And so basically, it's targeted towards researchers, scientists at Swiss academic institutions. And if they have an idea and the motivation to turn whatever it is that they are doing into a business, they can apply for this program. Then they go through the program, which lasts about 9 months. Actually, the Bea Chillig recently made an interesting remark about it being the same length as a pregnancy, which is probably as long as it takes for an idea to mature.
That's not a bad
just
comparison.
like a baby. Yes, so they go through this program, they are coached, and they have to pass 3 instances of presenting, the progress that they've been able to achieve to a jury that's composed of experts, investors, potential investors, and they have to manage to get past that jury on 3 occasions. And if they manage to do that, they get funding in the amount of 150,000 Swiss francs from Venture Kick, some of which is non-dilutive and some of which is in the form of a convertible loan towards their first round of financing. And that's basically how the whole program works. Kickfund picks up right after the end of Venture Kick, meaning that the companies that graduate from this program, they qualify to be considered for an investment by our fund. And our proposition for these companies is very simple and straightforward. So basically what we offer them is a fund that has very strong conviction in supporting them across both of the following consecutive 2 rounds of financing following the graduation from the program, with up to 850,000 Swiss francs, bringing the total amount of funding received from the Venture Kick ecosystem to the first million.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And alongside being coached and having support and really the opportunity to always improve. I think that's a wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely, yes.
What initially made you say yes to join Kickfund?
I mean, for me personally, as I've said, I always had this strong conviction in there being, very strong merits of a more co-investment driven investing approach for investors. So that's one thing. I always also had a very strong conviction in this volume-centered type of investment strategy being very compelling for investors as well. Not only investors, actually. I think it has some very cool qualities for the founders of the portfolio companies too, which I'm sure we will touch upon afterwards again. And then last but not least, I always, I just found this opportunity of taking a challenge, taking over responsibility of developing a very innovative venture capital product, which at the end of the day, it is what we're doing at Kickfund, to take over full responsibility of making this product possible. Yeah. Because, I mean, the challenge is not only in Switzerland, also beyond Switzerland, what we're doing with Kickfund, there are not a lot of other companies that have done something similar already, at least in Europe. Of course, in Germany, there's High-Tech Gründerfonds, who are managing a very expansive portfolio of companies too. That program, I think, in the background works a bit different than ours. But at the end of the day, at Kickfund, the portfolio that we are managing, the investment strategy that we are executing on is rather unique. And I always felt attracted by that. Yes.
And who is Kickfund today, besides you?
Yes, so the team itself is 3 employees. Besides myself, I work very closely together with Thomas Merle, who was a general partner at Biomed for more than 20 years. Basically, all of the interactions that the companies have with the company are either with myself or with the 2 of us.
Okay.
And both of us have full discretion over the execution of the investment strategy of the fund as well, which means that the companies, they always only deal with senior people who make the decisions as well. So they don't have to waste time on, having conversations with people who have to relay information and then get approval, for whatever it is that they are working on. So that's not the case with us. And then since April of this year, the team is also complemented by Angina Hermann as marketing manager. And Angina has a background in marketing, obviously, but she also is quite deeply involved in the deep tech ecosystem in Switzerland.
Cool.
So she has a very keen interest in all, of the different types of technologies that our portfolio companies are developing. And she's very passionate a storyteller as well.
So the 3 musketeers behind Kickfund.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
So it's the 3 of us. Exactly.
And can you share also the investors that are behind Kickfund, or maybe not who, but how many?
Not specifically, but
give us all the names.
We have about 20 investors, 20 qualified investors in the fund. And they are, we have individual investors with the capacity to make an investment in a venture capital fund. Something we've publicly disclosed is that both of the foundations I mentioned, who are also the initiators, I mean, not only the initiators of the venture capital program, but also the initiators of Kickfund, they're investors in the fund as well, both the Ernst Göhner as well as the Gebel Rüff Foundation. And then we have other institutional investors invested in the fund. It's a pretty diverse group of, different entities and individuals. The common denominator being that all of them are more or less closely involved in the venture kick community.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And something else actually that we've previously publicly disclosed as well is that we have several people invested in the fund as well that have previously participated in the venture capital program, gone on to sell their companies, and then are in between made an investment in the fund as well.
So they also know really cool. What the startups are going through, basically what kind of quality stamp it is.
Yes, exactly. I mean, those people experienced firsthand the value of the venture capital program.
Yeah.
And it's just a very strong signal, I mean, not only for venture kick, but also for us, obviously, that an investment strategy centered around this program is very promising.
Yeah.
Kickfund is the venture capital firm that invests in Switzerland's best deep tech startups right after they graduate from the venture kick competition. Kickfund has the largest and most diversified deep tech portfolio in the country, which makes it practically an index fund. For startup founders, Kickfund is the easiest VC they'll work with.
And this is also, I mean, something that goes back to what we were talking about before, the value proposition for investors and startups, of course. And I mean, venture kick as a base, as a quality assessment, really like an assessment center, more or less, is such a huge value for the people that are investing in the startups. Yes. What else do you notice are really like positive arguments that both investors and startups can gather from Kickfund?
Yes. So for investors, I think it's very simple and straightforward. And someone I met recently at an event actually put it in his own words. So this particular investor, who's an investor in our fund as well, made a statement about it being a lot of work putting together a portfolio of 20 startup investments as a business angel, and how great of an opportunity it is for somebody like this person to be able to make an investment in a fund like Kickfund, where you get direct exposure to, eventually for Fund 1, the portfolio will be at about 150 companies. We're at about 90 as of today. And for a person like that, getting access to such a broadly diversified portfolio of very promising companies that are, as you said, they're basically like pre-vetted by the Venture Kick program, is a very compelling proposition. For the startup founders themselves, what I always tell them is that we are extremely fast and pragmatic. So dealing with us is a process that doesn't take too much of their time. And it's really, it goes hand in hand with you only doing co-investments, but even compared to other investors that are only doing co-investments, I think dealing with us is you directly deal with the people who are taking the decisions, as I've said. And we have the privilege of having the companies already being vetted by VentureKick. And so we're very pragmatic and we just move forward with these investment opportunities very quickly. And then an investment by us is a very strong commitment to continue supporting the companies as well. And very few investors actually do that. But our approach is so systematic that already when we do or make a first investment, we tell the founders that the likelihood of us making a follow investment, as long as the progression and the circumstances of the next round of financing are aligned with our investment strategy, the likelihood of us making the investment is very high.
Okay.
And they can rely on us. Then another point that the founders find quite interesting as well is that the venture kick program ends, and then many of these companies, they end up in our portfolio. And what we really are envisioning is to nurture this whole community of founders as well. So as we're speaking, we're in the process of, basically taking care of the final preparations of a first event with some of our founders. And we're really, we're still in the process of experimenting with different formats, but a lot of founders find it very interesting to be able to tap into that shared pool of knowledge, to learn from one another, and just to be able to engage with other founders in the portfolio. Then another advantage for the portfolio companies is that we're, more longer term already today, but definitely more longer term as well. We would like to establish Kickfund as well as a platform for them to engage with potential investors in, their future financing rounds. The proposition of Kickfund is quite compelling for foreign investors as well, that have an interest in keeping an eye on companies that are coming out of Switzerland. And just recently did we introduce one such investor who was in the process of planning a trip to Switzerland, who reached out to us asking about whether there were any companies that this person should visit. So we basically referred him to several of our portfolio companies, and actually not too many, only to 3 companies. And one of the ones he met, they're in the process of making an investment in already too. Brilliant. And the meeting was only about 2 months ago. Yeah. And that's really cool. Going forward, we would obviously love to have, a lot of such success stories to show for our portfolio companies. And I'm quite confident that we are going to be able to do that. Yes.
So you're also a lot of very close contact with the companies in your portfolio. Do you have actually specific industries, or is it very varied?
The industry is, for obvious reasons, subject to the representation of different industries in the venture kick program. Yeah. So it goes hand in hand with that. At this point in time, I think we're maybe between 40 to 50% of portfolio companies coming from the life science industry, which is biotech, medtech, therapeutics, diagnostics, and all that kind of stuff. And then the remaining 50 to 60% or so, I always characterize by saying that some are developing technologies that have a hardware component to them. Companies working on energy, robotics, industrial applications, and then companies working on technologies that are mostly software or AI. Yes. And that's the remainder, the other 50 to 60%. But it's very difficult to, put a finger on it.
Pinpoint
other
it,
than life science being very well represented in the portfolio. So other than life science being so well represented, we also have ETH and EPFL among the portfolio companies very well represented as well. Yes.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go as far as saying that, for sure, Kickfund is not a life science focused fund. I think it's quite an interesting quality of the fund itself, because most venture capital funds, it's quite a binary thing, whether or not they invest in life sciences or not. And in our case, we do both.
Yeah.
We invest in life science, but we also invest in other IP heavy sectors. What we don't do is investing in not IP heavy things. Yes.
What do you do when one of your companies in the portfolio struggles? Because you mentioned before you also know everyone personally, you have very strong ties to them. What do you do when they struggle?
What we certainly don't do is micro-manage our portfolio companies. That would simply not be possible, taking into account the size of the portfolio. I think what we always try to do is, take our time when there's an urgent request by a founder. But, we're simply not the ones who are able to or go great lengths in order to support portfolio companies. It's simply not possible given the size of the portfolio. But whenever there's a possibility to help and be supportive, we do whatever it takes, obviously. Yes.
And before you mentioned Fund 1, which for me obviously sounds like there may be Fund 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. What's your long-term vision? Where do you see Kickfund in the next X years?
Yes. The whole idea about Kickfund was never to do a one-trick pony kind of thing of, only launching one single investment vehicle, but rather to turn it into a franchise of products is one of the ideas that we have, meaning that this almost index-like, very broadly diversified kind of investment strategy, that it might continue after Fund 1. And then in addition to that, there are different ways in which you could think about other complementary products that might build on top of this franchise of index-like investment products. But crucially, everything will always run on top of the venture kick program. Yeah. That's our key differentiator, and this is what we will do. And we're extremely confident in the venture kick program as well to grow and evolve, just as the Swiss ecosystem keeps on maturing. Yes. And so Kickfund should, in the future as well, keep on developing complementary investment products on top of venture kick. That's the idea. And we have a lot of ideas how to take it forward. Yeah. The most obvious thing of which would be to continue on the back of the trajectory of Fund 1. Yeah. Once time comes.
What about internationalizing?
It's certainly something that we could contemplate doing. There are two different ways in which you could do this. The venture kick program itself is theoretically open as well to applicants from abroad, but they're simply not very well represented. Yeah. But they could participate. So one thing that we could do is, if the venture kick program eventually opens up more towards foreign entrepreneurs, to just carry over the mandate, and by means of doing that, getting some international exposure as well in terms of the composition of the portfolio. Or you could expand beyond the venture kick program and, perhaps replicate what we've been doing across other similarly structured accelerator programs too. But this is a very theoretical idea.
Yeah.
And I think our strength is really building on top
The
of
venture
VentureKick.
kick.
Yes.
Is it possible for international investors?
Yes.
Okay. So that's already a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's also really interesting also for startups
Yes.
to
for
get
sure.
also to tap into the different markets.
Yes. I think our key strength is really this Swiss focus on both the side of the portfolio companies themselves as on the side of the investors too. But it's for sure not something that we would rule out per se, having foreign investors in the fund. But this whole, made in Switzerland kind of thing resonates quite well with the portfolio companies, of course, as well as with the investors. Yeah. Because, VentureKick, for obvious reasons, just as a function of it having supported the creation of so many companies, has had a very significant economic impact for Switzerland too. And it's something that, our stakeholders like to see about Kickfund as well. Yes. And it's definitely also one, a key differentiator, if you want.
That's one of the biggest roles that VentureKick has played in the last 18 years, really, to create this impact with all these companies.
Absolutely.
What would you say, what role did Kickfund play in that part in the last years?
The fund itself has only been operational since the beginning of 2024, so we're only just getting started. As I've said, we've been able to support several of the founders of our portfolio companies already with raising funds from investors. For one, we have investors in our fund as well. I didn't even mention that before, but certain investors might see Kickfund as a complement to their other early stage investment activities and as a source of investment opportunities for more later stage investments. And as a matter of fact, we have one portfolio company that's currently in the process of being evaluated by one of our investors for an investment too. So that's another positive outcome one of the ways in which we've had an impact for our portfolio companies. And we're only just getting started in helping the founders of our portfolio companies, nurturing, the relationships between them and tapping into that valuable pool of shared knowledge too. Yes. So we're really trying to do our best on different fronts. But as I've said, we're, only just getting started.
Yeah.
Yes.
And before we finish up, is there something maybe that you can share what you're currently working on, what's happening in the next, quarter or half year, something that's exciting coming up?
The count of portfolio companies stands at about 90.
Yeah.
And by the end of the investment period of Fund 1, it will be at about 150. And the number of companies coming out of the VentureKick program is between 30 to 40 in each given year. And so quite soon, the portfolio of Fund 1 will be complete. Yes.
That's exciting.
And so that's one, yes. And so, one of the things that I'm working on is thinking about what will come next.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yes.
And when can people apply for the VentureKick program again?
I think they accept applications all the time on a rolling basis, yes.
And what's next for you, Wanja, personally?
Oh, myself. So, not family. Our family is children complete, I think. No, just taking Kickfund to the next level.
Yeah.
That's the plan. What I always say is that Kickfund was started with a great idea of a cool investment product. And my job is to turn it into a very innovative, long-term business model. Yes.
Well, I think you're in a good way.
Thank you very
to
much.
do that. Thank you so much for joining us
me.
here and then sharing everything about Kickfund. And we're
pleasure.
super excited to see the Fund 1 closing and then, of course, seeing what's happening next.
Yes, thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.